Okay, a lot has happened. As you can probably tell, I got a new mic, so I should sound a lot better. Also, I've opened a Magic the Gathering section of the Stars of the City Discord. You'll need the MTG role if you want to access it. Unfortunately, making these cards in time for Halloween proved more difficult than expected, so the previous batch hasn't been adjusted for balance just yet. I'll do that in a community post at some point. Speaking of balancing, I realized that while I was using official cards as reference for a lot of effects, just because a card is official doesn't mean it's balanced, and there are plenty of staple cards that'll come up as first results that I shouldn't necessarily bring into the set without something to keep them in check. Now, as we get into the new cards, let's set expectations. LobCorp Abnos are way weirder than Limbus ones, so I've had to really stretch some designs, and there's not too many synergies among Abnos. Also, since LobCorp is a well-structured organization that has no problems sacrificing its employees, expect a lot of white, a lot of black, and a lot of black-white. Before we can contain any abnormalities, we need to get the facility up and running. Our 4 upper departments will help tremendously with this. Control department operates better when your creatures are dying. Information is our first scry effect of the set, allowing us to look at the top card of our library and choose whether or not to keep it or put it on the bottom. Safety is a fairly odd land by Magic the Gathering standards, giving you life gain when you take things slow and don't attack. Training lets you put some +1/+1 counters on your dudes. These lands all have the LobCorp tag, which will be important in a bit. Containment Unit keeps Abnos or enchantments off the field, keeping you safe from troublesome effects. Clerk Recruitment makes sure you always have a number of 1/1 clerks equal to your LobCorp lands, up to 5. Surely you'll be keeping these little guys safe instead of throwing them into the meat grinder, right? Finally, we have our AI assistant, Angela, a high-cost artifact creature with Defender and no attack. When she enters the battlefield, if you didn't cheat her out, you refresh your LobCorp lands. At each upkeep, she gives you the choice to extract a new Abno, department, or technology from your library. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's get to the abnormalities. I'll be perfectly honest, LobCorp abnormalities are hard to translate into Magic cards. Way harder than the Limbus ones. You'll also see that a lot of them are non-legendary, as are most of the previous Abnos. There's 2 reasons for this. There have already been a lot of legendaries in the set, and will be plenty more, and 2, a lot of Abnos just don't have interesting enough abilities to make into legendary creatures in the first place. Now, obviously, our first Abno has to be 1 sin and hundreds of good deeds. In fact, it can be your first Abno too, if it starts in your hand. It's mostly just the life gain source, but can also cleanse you of some nasty counters. Penitence, I decided to make a sorcery instead of an equipment, referencing not just its ruin aversion, but also its function with a certain other Abno in the facility. It exiles all enchantments, simple as that. Yes, this includes 1 sin itself. If you know how gods are typically handled in Magic the Gathering, you may know why I made it exile enchantments specifically. Red Shoes is an equipment that royally messes up your creature, but if that creature can get through your opponent's defenses, you'll get a bunch of blood tokens. Speaking of blood, Bloodbath makes your blood go way further. Every 3 blood you use, you get 1 blood back. It's also a blood itself. Blood, blood, blood. Blood all the way down. Child of the Galaxy is an enchantment, since he never actually does anything himself. When he enters, you put a pebble on a creature you control. Any creatures with pebbles have big stat boosts and lifelink. If you start your turn without any pebbles, you'll take damage and may put down a new pebble on a creature you control. Fragment of the Universe is colorless, but actually black. As an extraterrestrial, it will surveil the planet when it enters, allowing you to control your draws and get things into your graveyard if need be. It also will mill foes over time. Woo, that's a lot of Abnos, and we're hardly halfway through. Let's get into some ego gear. I've made a lot of this gear into a common form. I didn't want to make fully realized ego gear for every Abno, so this common gear makes sure that these Abnos can still resonate with something. I've future-proofed them with Abnos that will likely be made at some point, and this doesn't mean that the listed Abnos won't have their own special gear at some point as well. It just means that I have no plans for the time being. Back to Abnos, Spider Bud is a fun one that I thought was worthy of legendary status. You can sacrifice your creatures to create spiders and Enkephalin. If those spiders die, you can charge up Spider Bud, and after 3 charges, it can now attack. And if it manages to hit, it creates even more spiders based on how angry it is. Spider Bud also has our first unique ego gear, and surprise, it's Red Eyes and Penitence. This ego gear gets stronger the more it's used. Not much more to say on it, other than that, yes, it only shows up in LobCorp through the Red Mist fight, but hey, it's fun. Crumbling Armor has protection from blue, the color of nerds and cowards, and if a player doesn't swing in with everything they have, it makes them lose life. It also hastes your creatures because, yes, even creatures who can't attack still contribute to this. Well Cheers is exactly what you'd expect. Pay mana of different colors for some fun effects. Scarecrow Searching for Wisdom gets stronger against foes with lots of cards, and lets you have any player draw a card, then they'll discard a card at the end of the turn, essentially going neutral by the end. Forsaken Murderer is pretty simple. When you stick equipment into his brain, he gets stronger and leaks Enkephalin. Regret is an easy-to-attach equipment, and gives randomized boosts each turn, but you can't take it off once it's on. All-Around Helper can only attack every other turn, but is indestructible when doing so. What a strong little lad. Punishing Bird I'm not entirely happy with. I got the Vengeance part down, but I realized he doesn't do the annoying peck thing, so I'll probably rework him at some point. Still, for right now, he insta-kills creatures who attack him, and if an enemy targets him, they get a ton of Vengeance counters. And don't worry, Vengeance counters isn't a mechanic that stops at Punishing Bird. Before we get to our last Abno, let's do our Ordeals for the batch. Ordeals of Amber is a saga that takes a break every other turn, but gives tremendous value over this long time, summoning a bunch of big bugs. Other Ordeals will use the same format, but will be more complex, so I'm keeping it simple for now. Finally, we have a fan favorite, Funeral of Dead Butterflies. Obviously, white-black, he has Reach, Lifelink, and Death Touch, and he locks down your opponent's graveyards, so the dead can rest undisturbed. On top of this, he continuously saps life when foes put cards in their graveyard, whether this be from being played, dying, or being milled. In the same vein, you gain life when cards go to your graveyard. His ego, Solemn Lament, gives the same keywords as the abnormality, and gives double strike if the target has a full graveyard. Well, that's all for this batch, but I do also want to share some cards I tried to make, but didn't feel like they lived up to my expectations. Their Fryshoots almost made it in, but its effect felt overdone, and the same with Magic Bullet. So close, but just didn't scratch the right itch. The Sephiroth were also weird. I wanted to have them be artifacts that transformed into a sort of trial, and then transformed back with new abilities. But again, just seemed overdone and awkward. Not to mention, I was essentially designing 3 forms at once. Combined with unique conditions, yeah, I'll revisit these next time I head to LobCorp. The next batch will probably take longer. I want to work on some other things right now, but have a happy Halloween, and remember to join the Discord for a better place to chat about the set. Oh, and tokens for this batch will likely come in a day or two. Needed to get the video on time and all that. In any case, see you next time.